I have a confession to make. I absolutely love keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard shortcuts are combinations of keystrokes that you can use to complete actions in a software program, and even instead of using the mouse. They're particularly helpful in Excel, where we need to be navigating around using the mouse a lot, sometimes clicking and dragging, and frequently scrolling around in large data sets. In this video and in this lesson, I'm going to be showing you a few keyboard shortcuts that I find incredibly useful and makes working in Excel much more efficient for me, and I hope it will do the same for you. What we're going to start with is we're going to start with a series of functions that you're probably familiar with from other software programs, and that's cut, copy, and paste kinds of functions. We can do all of those things relatively easily using some of these features, some of these links in the home menu where we can cut, copy, and paste. But we can also do this using keyboard shortcuts. Let's do an example where we want to copy the index column from column A to column H. The keyboard shortcut for copying is universal across almost all software programs. On a Windows operating system, we copy by using Control-C. As soon as we press Control-C, we can see that selected range is now highlighted. We have the moving border around it. And we simply need to click where we want to paste that selection of data. And now we can use the paste keyboard shortcut, Control-V. Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste. This is so much easier for me than navigating around through menus and finding the right action icon on the ribbon up top. These keyboard shortcuts are second nature for me. If you work in spreadsheets a lot, they'll become second nature for you as well. This is where I can also introduce another keyboard shortcut for you. We can undo any action in Excel and in many other programs very quickly by using Control-Z. So suppose I consider this a mistake. I didn't want to do that after all. Control-Z, and it undoes what we just did. Control-Z is undo. If we change our minds again, and I do this all the time, we actually do want our data there, we can redo the action. That is Control-Y, to redo what we just did. So we can go back and forth really quickly. And again, for correcting errors, this Control-Z function is absolutely fantastic. If you change something in a spreadsheet and you're not sure exactly what, just hit Control-Z a few times and it'll back you up through the last few steps you engaged in and fix that problem for you. It's really fantastic. So that was copy and paste, and then we used undo and redo. This time, let's take a look at actually removing and moving this set of data from column A and completely moving it over to column H. Rather than using Control-C to copy, we're going to use Control-X. Control-X will cut that right out. It's no longer going to be there, and we're going to paste it there. And you can see that that index column is now gone from column A. So we've fully moved it around. Control-X to cut, Control-V to paste. One thing you'll notice here is each time we paste, we get a new menu item here. Now I've reverted our spreadsheet back to the way it looked originally so that I can show you a few other keyboard shortcuts that will be useful. We were just cutting and copying and pasting, moving data around if we need to. What we can also do is we can navigate around our data set. With a small data set like our weather data, it's not as important as with a big data set, but this will be a great situation for you to see how this works, and then I'm going to give you the opportunity to see it and try it out in a larger data set. So let's start with our weather data again. As you know, and as you may remember from when we were entering these data, we can navigate around Excel simply by using the arrow keys. We know we can use the mouse as well, but the arrow keys can sometimes be faster and more convenient, especially when we're entering in data. What you may not know is we don't have to move around one cell at a time like this. We can actually zip all around the data set by using the Control key in combination with the arrows. If we want to go all the way down to the bottom, we can press Control and down, all the way to the right, Control and right, and so on. And we can do laps around our whole data set just like this very effectively and quickly. Again, When we have data sets that are hundreds or thousands of rows and columns in size, this becomes a really fast way to get all the way to the end of the data. Now, this is helpful to get around our spreadsheet, but what if we want to move things around? What if we want to drag and highlight and click and move data, just like copying and pasting like we were working with? We can do this with keyboard shortcuts as well. If we use the Shift key in combination with the arrows, this is just like clicking and dragging to highlight a selection, to select a range so that we can cut, copy, and paste if we wish to do that. We can do this one cell at a time using Shift and arrow key, and we can make these selections any size and shape that we want to be able to highlight the exact range of data that we want to highlight and move around. We can also combine these two sets of keyboard shortcuts. If we hold the Control and Shift key together and then use the arrow keys, this will very quickly highlight an entire column or highlight our entire data set, again if we wish to cut, copy, and or paste and move those data around. So that is an extremely effective way to quickly navigate a spreadsheet and get around our data and highlight cells as we need to. Now that I've shown you a few of these little tips and tricks for navigating around an Excel spreadsheet, we're going to shift to a larger data set where I'll show you the same thing so you can see how much faster it makes working with this spreadsheet, and then I'll give you the opportunity to practice some of these skills yourself. So here's our much larger data set that we're going to be using so that we can try out some of these keyboard shortcuts to see how they can make our work more efficient. This data set has more columns, it has many more rows, and we can find out exactly how many by zooming all the way down to the bottom using Control and the arrow key. That's what I just did. We see here we're in cell 501. We know that we have 500 rows of data because that first row is actually our column headers. I can zoom back up there, Control and up arrow key to confirm on that. One other thing that you'll need to know about using these keyboard shortcuts to navigate across a spreadsheet is that it doesn't always take you to the very end of the entire spreadsheet. What Excel is actually doing is it's looking for the first break in data. And so if we look in this last column, this total personal income column, then what we'll see is that every time we use Control and down arrow key, it's simply skipping to the end of the complete series. It's stopping right before a break in the data. This itself can also become a very helpful tool to find missing values and find places where we may have had errors or where we just have blank cells. I'm going to give you a few tasks to complete in this data set so that you can practice with these different keyboard shortcuts, and we'll be returning to this data set again in the future for some of our other work.